Welcome to Whispering Realms. Tonight, I'll guide you through drifting stories and ancient mysteries, not meant to be solved, only felt. Let your thoughts become soft. Let your breath match the slow rhythm of these whispered places. What you hear may or may not be real, but it doesn't matter now. You are safe. You are here. You may rest. The city beneath the sand Yubra. There once was a city carved into the bones of a desert. Its name was Yubra. Some called it the City of Lanterns, others, the Quiet Pearl. But all agreed it had once been beautiful. Strange. Alive. The sun in that desert moved slowly. The sky above Yubra was often purple at noon, as if it remembered twilight too fondly to let it go. The air shimmered not with heat, but with something older, memory, perhaps. The city streets were narrow rivers of ivory dust, flanked by towers of honey-colored stone, each embedded with crystals that caught the light and hummed in harmony with the wind. These were not houses. These were harps. Every step echoed with soft chords, a melody known only to Yubra. Its people walked barefoot, not as a sign of poverty, but of reverence. The earth there was alive with music. The soles of their feet heard songs no ears could capture. Once every year, when the two moons aligned, the sky bell would toll, a sound so pure and deep, they said even the dead paused to listen. The sky bell had no rope, no clapper. It was a massive ring of obsidian, hung between two pillars taller than any creature. No one touched it. It rang only when the moons allowed. They say the sky bells toll predicted change. The last time it rang, the stars seemed to flicker. Then the sand came. Not in waves, but in hunger. Within 3 days, Yubra vanished. But some claim that, in the deepest silence of night, when desert winds die and stars hold their breath, a single, low chime still echoes beneath the dunes. The Garden of the Sleepless Deer. Far beyond maps, past rivers that forgot their names, there is a forest untouched by time. At its heart, a garden where no one sleeps. It is watched over by deer, tall, silver-eyed creatures with antlers that curve like crescent moons. They do not blink. They do not run. They simply watch. These are the sleepless deer. They stand beneath trees whose leaves never fall. The grass beneath their hooves never bends. The ponds reflect stars, even when the sky is cloudy. This is the garden of still breath, where even the wind holds its silence. Travelers speak of it only in whispers. To see it is rare. To leave it, rarer still. For those who wander too close often forget they were ever looking for it. It's said that time here has no power. That once you pass beneath the silver willows, your heartbeat slows, your voice softens, your thoughts begin to melt into the hum of stillness. You may forget your name. But you will not be afraid. Because the deer are watching. And they have always been kind. The whispering temples of La. Long ago, before words had shape, there were sounds. And in the deep valleys of the world, people learned to speak not with lips, but with stones. In the city of La, every temple was a tuning fork. The walls resonated with the voices of the wind. Songs were carved into pillars. Sermons were sung not aloud, but through vibration, deep tones that danced along the skin. They believed knowledge did not belong in books, but in bones. A prayer in La was felt, not read. The priests of La wore robes stitched with metal threads, so they would shimmer when they spoke. They moved slowly, barefoot across marble floors that sang like crystal when touched. Once every 7 years, they held a ceremony called the Silent Chorus, where thousands gathered in total stillness, while a single monk whispered one word. The word was never told. But it was said to be the true name of the world. No one knows what became of La. Some think the mountain swallowed it. Others believe it was never real, just a resonance heard in dreams. Even now, some say that when you lie in bed and everything is still, if your heart is quiet enough, you may feel the echo of a word you do not know, but deeply recognize. The boat that waits in the sky. Above the clouds, where stars stretch like silk, floats a ship made of obsidian and wind. It is known as the boat of last thought. It has no crew, no sails, no anchor. It drifts, endlessly, waiting. Some say it was carved from a single stone, forged by moonlight and the last breath of a dying god. Others say it simply appeared, a gift from the dreamless. The boat collects things. Not gold. Not people. But memories. It gathers final thoughts, the kind spoken with no audience. The wishes muttered into pillows. The regrets buried under laughter. The farewells we are too late to say. Every misty night, the boat descends low enough to listen. Some who stare too long at the sky have seen its shape, a dark outline against the stars, gliding slowly, silently. They say that if you whisper into the night, when no one else is awake, the boat will hear you and carry your thought forever. The mirror that refused to reflect. In the ruins of a half-remembered monastery, hidden in the mists of a mountain range no one climbs, lies a single mirror. It is ancient, older than language. It is framed in wood that never decays, carved with the faces of sleeping gods. But when you look into it, nothing looks back. The mirror does not reflect light. It reflects only silence. Some believe it shows your truest self, not as you are, but as you were before birth. Others say it is not a mirror at all but a window to a place where you never existed. The monks who kept it are long gone, vanished into mist or memory. But their journals remain, filled with pages of inkless writing. When held to firelight, the pages reveal sketches of the mirror. And behind it, shapes. Soft shapes. Watching. The mirror now rests at the heart of a crumbled stone temple. No vines grow near it. No moss touches its surface. They say that if you sit before it and speak your name, it will not echo. Because in that place, you were never born. Ambient music slowly softens. Wind returns. You've wandered far, dear listener. Through forgotten cities, quiet temples, and skies filled with memory. Let your eyes become heavy. Let your breath settle, like dust over ancient stone. The silent library beneath the sea. Beneath the gentle waves of a forgotten sea, where no ships sail and no fish swim, there is a library made entirely of glass. It is called Ashara, the Library of Silent Tongues. It rests on the ocean floor, sealed in a dome of living crystal that breathes like a lung. Coral wraps around its pillars. The current hums softly through vaulted halls. But there is no sound. The books within are not written with ink. They are grown translucent slabs of membrane and memory. Each book is a single thought, captured from a dreamer who once slept too close to the sea. The librarians are not people. They are shapes cloaked in shimmer and shadow moving slowly between the shelves. They do not speak. They do not judge. They only catalog dreams. Every night, the library sends a single bubble to the surface inside it, a wordless lullaby. Only those who have forgotten how to wake can hear it. Some divers have claimed they saw Ashara glowing deep below, like a heart buried in blue. But none who swam toward it returned. It is not a place for the curious. It is a place for the lost. The forest that dreams. In a distant valley where fog never lifts and stars remain unseen, there grows a forest that dreams. The trees here do not sway with the wind, for there is none. They breathe slowly, exhaling soft motes of golden dust, which hang in the air like frozen pollen. These are the breathing trees. They dream when the world sleeps. And if you lie at their roots and close your eyes, their dreams will brush against yours. You may dream of places you have never seen, a city of floating bells, a staircase that curls into a sky of feathers, a woman who weeps ink beneath a silent eclipse. These dreams are not yours. But for a moment, they become your shelter. There are no paths in this forest. Only memory. Some say the forest is not rooted in soil, but in time. It grows backward, each tree older than the last. The deeper you wander, the further back you drift, not just in years, but in dreams forgotten by the world. No creature lives here, except the dreaming owl's pale birds that never hoot. They only blink, and remember. Segment 8, The Clock That Runs on Silence. At the edge of an abandoned city stands a tower with no doors and no windows. Only a single spire of black stone, pointed toward the sky. At its crown turns a clock, but no ticking is heard. This is the chronal keep, the clock that runs on silence. It has no gears, no pendulum, no visible movement. But once every hour, shadows beneath the tower shift, slightly. Those who spend too long near it report feeling as though time forgets them. Their watches freeze. Their voices sound distant. Their footsteps seem to echo from elsewhere. The city around Etelver has long crumbled. No birds fly here. No plants grow. The stones are cold, even in summer. Some say the keep does not count time forward but backward. That it is not keeping the hour, but unmaking it. There is a legend that if someone were to climb the tower, they would vanish before reaching the top, erased not by magic, but by absence. And yet, every few years, new graffiti appears at its base. Short, quiet phrases etched into the stone. I was here. Still watching. Don't forget me. No one sees who writes them. The lanterns of the forgotten shore. On a beach that does not appear on maps, beyond a sea where waves move backward, lie the lanterns of the forgotten shore. These lanterns are not made by hand. They bloom. At dusk, small orbs of soft green light begin to rise from the sand, like petals unfolding under moonlight. They float just above the ground, flickering with stories no one remembers. Each lantern is a memory lost at sea. When the tide recedes, some of them hum. Not a song, but a thought, the kind you forget the moment you wake, but which lingers in your chest like warmth from a fire. People who walk the forgotten shore do so barefoot, in silence. They know the lanterns are listening. It is said that if you whisper something you wish to forget, the lanterns will take it. But in return, they show you something you had forgotten you loved. A smile. A scent. A laugh from someone no longer near. They never take more than they give. And when the tide rises again, the lanterns dissolve into foam. The room at the end of the rain. In a city that only exists during storms, there is a building with no number, no door, and no windows. Yet, every time it rains, a faint light can be seen within a warm golden glow that flickers like candlelight. Some call it the room at the end of the rain. It appears only when thunder sleeps and the rain becomes soft as silk. When the world feels blurry, and time itself seems to drift sideways. Those who find it never speak of how they entered. Only that they were cold, and then, they were not. Inside, the room is always the same, a fireplace with no smoke, a chair that rocks itself, and a single teacup, warm to the touch. The room never speaks. But it listens. And in its silence, many have remembered who they were, before life made them forget. When the rain ends, the room fades, not all at once, but like a dream you're trying to hold on to. Some return to find it again. Most do not. But all remember the warmth. Even if they forget everything else. Let yourself rest now. Let the shapes fade and the stillness return. What you've heard is not meant to be kept, only felt, softly, like a breeze that passes without a name. The staircase without end. In the center of a city erased from all records, beneath the shattered foundation of a temple to no god, lies a staircase that spirals forever. It has no entry. No top. No bottom. Only a beginning that forgets itself, and a path that curves gently in silence. The steps are made of ash-colored stone, etched with symbols that fade when touched. They call it the staircase without end. Some believe it is not a staircase at all, but a thought, a spiral carved into the body of the world, looping again and again, too vast to ever leave. Those who descend say the air becomes thick with memory. Not their own, but that of the place. As though the stones themselves recall every footfall, every breath, every pause. No one has reached its end. But some have returned with silver in their hair and a silence in their eyes that cannot be filled. They often sleep standing up. They never forget the turning. The garden beneath the clock. In the ruins of an old city swallowed by vines and fog, there stands a broken clock tower. The face is shattered. The hands have rusted. But at its base is something few ever see. A garden. It is not visible in daylight. But during the hour just before dawn, when shadows are soft and the world forgets its sharp edges, the garden appears. It blooms with blue flowers that glow like distant stars. They call it the garden beneath the clock. No birds sing here. But there is music, a slow, low hum, like cello strings bowed by wind. Each flower is said to bloom only once, when someone remembers something they thought they had lost forever. A voice. A lullaby. A moment of joy wrapped in sorrow. Travelers who stumble upon it are often found weeping quietly, though they cannot say why. The flowers never wilt. But when the sun rises, they vanish not in decay, but in memory. The painter of impossible windows. In a narrow alley in a city where it always rains, there is a studio that cannot be found on purpose. Its door appears only when you're not looking for it. Inside lives the painter of impossible windows. He is old. Or perhaps young, but exhausted from waiting. He does not speak. His brush moves slowly, steadily, across vast canvases stretched wall to wall. He paints only windows. But these windows open to places that do not exist, a house halfway up a thundercloud, a moon made of mirrors, a library with staircases that float in salt air. Some say the windows are not paintings at all, but portals, memories rendered visible, dreams remembered too clearly. If you gaze into one for too long, the world behind you fades. A few have stepped through. Or disappeared, perhaps. It's hard to tell the difference. The painter never stops working. When asked why he paints, he simply smiles, and begins another window. The bells that never ring. High in the cliffs above a blackened bay hang dozens of bells. They are large, taller than a man, cast from silver and obsidian, inscribed with words no one alive can read. These are the bells that never ring. They sway with the wind, gently. Softly. But they make no sound. It is said they were forged in mourning, not for the dead, but for memories that never became real. Futures that were imagined, but never lived. When fog rolls in, the cliffside becomes hidden, and the bells look like ghosts waiting for a voice. Some believe the sound of the bells exists, just not in this world. That when you dream, and hear something beautiful but can't remember what it was, that was the bells. And if you ever hear them ring while awake, it means something is ending. The door beneath the bed. In a cottage swallowed by forest and sleep, there is a door beneath the bed. It was not built there. It grew there. Small, round, with a brass handle that's always cool to the touch. It does not open with force. Only with dreams. When someone sleeps above it, the door glows faintly, a pale, lavender light that pulses with the rhythm of breath. It opens to a hallway that curves softly downward, lit by candles that never burn out. The walls hum with lullabies different for each traveler. At the end of the hallway is always a room. But the room is never the same. For some, it's the attic of their childhood home, filled with boxes of laughter and dust. For others, it's a garden beneath stars they've never seen. No one speaks in the room. There is nothing to say. Only stillness. When you wake, the door is gone. But sometimes, if you sleep deeply enough, you can still feel the handle under your hand. Segment 16, the river that flows upward. In a valley hidden by clouds, where light bends strangely and birds fly in spirals, there flows a river that moves toward the sky. Not quickly. Not violently. Just, upward. It begins in a pool of obsidian, rises like mist, and twists through the air, scattering droplets that taste like memory. The locals call it Nera, which means, to forget gently. No boats sail it. No fish swim in it. But stories say that if you place a written sorrow into the water, it will carry it upward, higher and higher, until the stars take it. Some say the river was once a tear shed by the moon. Others say it's the forgotten breath of the world. When night falls, the river glows faintly, not from within, but as if remembering sunlight. It is not a river to cross. It is a river to release. Soft ambient tones return, flutes, wind, low pads. And now, breathe deeply. Let the river carry your thoughts upward. Let the stillness return. We are not yet finished. But you may rest. The Watchmaker's Forest. Beyond a rusted railway bridge and deep into a forest where the trees grow in perfect lines, there is a cottage that ticks. Not with clocks. With time itself. The watchmaker lives here. Or perhaps, did live here. It's hard to say. The air smells of grass and cedarwood. Each tree has gears in its bark, tiny brass mechanisms that pulse like hearts. The forest does not grow. It keeps time. Leaves fall not with the seasons, but when memory says they should. The watchmaker, it said, built every second in this place by hand. He wound the hours into the roots and tucked the minutes into the wings of moths. If you sit still long enough, you can feel time breathe. Sometimes slowly. Sometimes not at all. No one stays long. The longer you remain, the less you remember of the world outside, until all that's left is the rhythm of the forest's ticking. A perfect quiet. The ocean in the mirror. In an attic sealed for over 100 years, there is a mirror covered with canvas and bound with silk cord. Behind it, not a reflection, but an ocean. Still. Endless. Moonlit. Waves crash in silence. The mirror does not show what you are. It shows what you would become, if you listened only to your quietest voice. Ships drift there, unmanned. Lighthouses blink slowly in the distance. Some claim to have heard gulls from inside the glass. The sea has no name. It's not an ocean of salt, but of longing collected from every dream that ended before it could begin. If you stare too long, the attic fades. The mirror does not pull you in. It waits. Until you decide you've waited long enough. The house between Thursdays. There's a road that appears only on Wednesdays, just after dusk. It is always wet, though it never rains. It leads to a house that exists only between Thursdays. A wide, slanted home with too many windows and too few doors. Inside, the air smells like cinnamon and old paper. The rooms shift gently, like dreams stirred by footsteps. You never find the same room twice. In one hallway, you might see paintings that blink. In another, a staircase that sighs when stepped on. No clocks. No calendars. No end. Those who visit report losing time not in great gulps, but in thin strands, like thread slipping from a needle. They return with unfinished thoughts and poems they don't remember writing. The house doesn't trap you. It simply forgets to let you go. The lanterns that follow. Across the salt flats of a long-forgotten land, where nothing grows and the air smells faintly of burnt feathers, there are lights. Lanterns. They do not rest on poles. They float, just above the ground. Soft, golden, flickering like breath. They follow. Not closely. Never threateningly. Just behind you. Always one fewer than you expect. They say they are memories. But not yours. Lanterns lit by the footsteps of those who came before, those who dreamed here, who vanished in peace. They don't speak. They don't burn. But if you stop and turn, if you speak softly to them, they seem to listen. And when you cry, the lanterns grow warm. The sleep-well train. Once a month, under a waning crescent moon, a train whistles through a town that no longer has tracks. Its cars are always lit, its windows fogged with breath. The sleep-well train. It does not stop for tickets. It only stops for those too tired to keep walking. The conductor is unseen. The seats are always just soft enough. It is said that on the sleep-well train, you don't travel to somewhere. You travel away from everything you no longer need. Luggage isn't allowed. Only burdens. And when you disembark, if you disembark, you leave them behind. Sometimes, a name. Sometimes, a worry. Sometimes, a song you haven't sung in years. The train doesn't move quickly. But it always arrives on time. The well of forgotten stars. At the edge of a crumbling monastery, half swallowed by sand, is a well with no bottom. Not dark. Not deep. Just, still. At night, it glows faintly, like distant starlight. This is the well of forgotten stars. Not stars in the sky, but those within us, dreams too bright to last, hopes too soft to carry far. The monks say the well sings. Not words, but colors: violet, silver, slow amber. If you lean close, you don't hear it. You feel it in your bones, in your breath, in the place behind your thoughts. Some toss in poems. Others, regrets. A few just whisper their names. The well does not echo. It holds what you give. Gently. Quietly. Forever. The wind that carries names. There's a desert with no map, no border, no edge. But always wind. Always whispering. This wind does not erode. It remembers. It gathers names, names no longer spoken, names only written in dreams. Each gust carries a story that was almost lost. It brushes your skin not with sand, but with fragments of lullabies sung to empty rooms, of letters never sent. They say if you walk far enough into the desert, your own name will be spoken back to you, not as it is, but as it was once meant to be. The wind doesn't call. It offers. And you must choose whether to answer. The room at the end of the world. No one knows how far it is. But somewhere, past the sleepiest oceans and the softest echoes, is a room. It has no windows. No corners. No ceiling you can see. Only a single, glowing chair in the middle. The room at the end of the world. It is not a sad place. Nor joyful. It simply is. Here, the world exhales. And you, finally, listen. They say when you sit in the chair, you do not fall asleep. You remember what sleep really is. Not silence. Not escape. But return. Soft instrumental ambient music fades in strings, flutes, faint wind, and bell tones. And now, let your breath rise like the river. Let your mind become the lantern. Let the well take your weight, gently. We are nearing the final realm. And in that realm, you may finally rest. The library of unread books. At the very edge of sleep, where thoughts drift like paper boats, there is a library. Endless. Silent. Golden with candlelight. Here dwell the books never read, not forgotten, but unopened. Stories written in solitude, poems scribbled and tucked away, letters that waited patiently in drawers. They rest on shelves that go on forever, stretching up into starlight and down into dreams. When you enter, no one greets you. But you are known. Each book hums softly when you touch it, as if recognizing a friend it never met. Some books contain no words, just feelings. Others are written in languages no longer spoken, but somehow understood. You may take any book. There is no checkout. Just read. Quietly. Slowly. The stories will wait as long as you need. The city that slept too long. There is a city deep beneath the waves, not drowned, but dreaming. Its spires are wrapped in coral. Its windows glow faintly from within. It is not abandoned. It sleeps. The city that slept too long. Each building breathes. Faintly. Steadily. As if the stones themselves had lungs. In its heart, a great clock ticks backward. Not in rebellion, but in return, moving gently towards something once forgotten. If you listen closely, you'll hear voices in the current, not calling for help, not asking to be found. Just whispering lullabies to themselves. Those who glimpse the city often return changed. They speak more slowly, smile more softly, and sometimes, when they close their eyes, water trickles from their lashes. The city is still sleeping. It will sleep until it is no longer needed. The Cloud Garden. Above the tallest mountain you've never heard of, there is a garden that grows on clouds. Soft, shifting, luminous. No soil. No rain. Just sky. Flowers drip, suspended in the air, blooming only when someone below dreams of peace. Petals like snowflakes. Stems that hum when touched. The Cloud Garden is tended by no one. It does not need care. It is care. Each plant glows with the echo of a kind word, a quiet act, a small courage left unseen. When you sleep deeply, when your breathing stills into the rhythm of the stars, sometimes your dreams visit here. You may not remember it. But the garden will remember you. The mirror without reflection. In the halls of an old observatory, cracked and sunken into the earth, stands a single mirror with no reflection. Not empty. Not broken. Just, still. They call it the mirror without reflection. Those who stand before it do not see themselves. They see the moment they let go. For some, it's an open door with nothing behind it. For others, a flickering candle in an unfamiliar room. The mirror doesn't change you. It simply shows you what peace might look like, if you ever stop searching for it. Most people turn away quickly. But those who stay, even for a moment, feel something loosen within them. A knot untying. A hush long overdue. The mirror reflects nothing. Because in that moment, you are everything. The moon's attic. At the top of a staircase made of breath, beyond the ceiling of dreams, there is a door carved into moonlight. Behind it, an attic. Dustless. Soundless. Filled with boxes made of folded wishes and forgotten melodies. This is the moon's attic. A resting place for moments too delicate to carry in daylight. Here are jars filled with the laughter of children never born. Here are keys to doors that never existed. Here are maps that only appear when you are lost. The moon keeps these not in secrecy, but in kindness. Because the weight of memory, even beautiful memory, can sometimes be too much. So it holds them for us. And when we're ready, truly ready, we may come and open any box. But only in sleep. Only in stillness. The end that was always gentle. Now, you stand at the edge. Not of danger. Not of darkness. But of quiet. The place beyond stories. Beyond places. Beyond you. A field stretches out before you, filled with soft grass that glows faintly under a forever twilight. This is the end that was always gentle. There are no footsteps here. No fences. No questions. Only space to breathe. You may lie down, if you wish. Close your eyes. Feel the earth exhale beneath you. Feel the sky lean down to listen. Here, nothing is asked of you. Not even sleep. But sleep comes anyway, drawn by the softness of your stillness. It wraps around you like the last line of a poem, too quiet to speak, too beautiful to forget. You are not alone. You never were. This is the end of the path. And the beginning of rest. The quiet after the story. The story is over. But still, the world breathes. Soft winds curl through unseen trees. Distant rivers hum lullabies written by silence itself. You are resting now. But your mind drifts gently, like a lantern on a calm lake. Here in the quiet after the story, things don't need names. They simply are. You walk through a field of tall, glowing grass. It makes no sound, only light like old starlight that took too long to reach you. No thoughts tug at your sleeves. No questions remain. Only the slow, floating feeling of something vast and kind holding you, just enough. Segment 32, The Keeper of Nothing. Sitting on a rock near a still pond is a figure. Not old, not young. Not man, not woman. The keeper of nothing. They hold no books. Carry no keys. Wear no crown. Their only possession is the moment. When you approach, they smile not as a greeting, but as recognition. You do not speak. They do not speak. You simply are together, beside the water, listening to the quiet between all the things that were ever said. After a while, the keeper offers you a small feather. Not to keep. Just to hold. And in that instant, you remember something important, and forget it just as softly. That's the gift. The place between breaths. Now, imagine this. A space between two deep breaths. Not the inhale. Not the exhale. The stillness in between. That's where you are now. A room made of air. Painted with patience. Lit only by the beat of your heart slowing down. Nothing moves here. Time sits beside you, barefoot, humming to itself. There is no door. There is no need for one. This place has always existed, waiting for you to pause long enough to find it. It doesn't teach. It doesn't lead. It reminds that you are not broken. That stillness is not failure. That rest is sacred. The gentle return. Eventually, the wind begins to shift. Not to wake you, but to remind you that nothing has ended and nothing ever truly began. A bell chimes softly in the far distance. Once. Then again, slower. And the landscape around you fades gently, like fog lifting from a quiet morning. You're still safe. Still at peace. But you feel it now, the edge of waking. Not sharp. Not sudden. Just possible. And you choose to linger. Because you can. Because here, in the afterrealm, even time is patient with you. One last lantern. Before you go or before you drift even deeper, something appears at your side. A lantern. Warm. Floating. You know this one. It's yours. It's followed you for years, through restless nights and long-forgotten dreams. Tonight, it glows brighter. Not because you found something, but because you finally allowed yourself to not search. The lantern doesn't ask where you're going. It doesn't need to. It will follow. As it always has. Final ambient cue, gentle wind, soft heartbeat like hum, very faint lullaby on harp. The whispering realms have grown quiet now. But they are never gone. Close your eyes. Let go. The dream continues, even when you forget its name. Sleep well. We'll see you again, beyond the next still breath.